Hello, welcome to this little revision lesson on upper and lower bounds. Okay, big topic in numeracy actually. Okay, it's in maths as well, but it can be worth quite a few marks in numeracy on the calculator and non-calculator papers. Okay, it's been a while since we've done this. Okay, so just as a reminder, and you'll need this in your books, the golden rule for upper and lower bounds is to always look at the to the nearest bit of the question, okay, that tells you how accurately it was measured. Okay, so if it says to the nearest 10 in a question, you take the nearest part, the 10, you chop it in half, so 5, and you can go down by 5 or up by 5. Okay, if a question said nearest meter, as in nearest 1 meter, you would go half a meter up and down. If a question said that something had been measured to the nearest 50 grams, you would do half of 50, so 25, and go down by 25 and up by 25. Okay, so the key to getting your upper and lower bounds right in the first place for your measurements is to look at the to the nearest section, chop it in half, take it away and add it on to get your lower bound and your upper bound. Okay, so after you've written that down, okay, and you can pause the video if you need a bit more time, what I'd like you to do next is to see if you can fill in the blanks in this list. Okay, so I'll move the screen down. What would be the upper and lower bound for each of these? So pause the video, fill them in, okay, and when you're ready, press play and I'll talk you through what you should have. Okay, so for the first one it says nearest 10, so we're going down by 5 and up by 5. So down by 5, up by 5 is 145, sorry, 135. That's wrong, isn't it? So 135 is the small one, and 145 would be the big one. Down by 5 and up by 5. Okay. For 600 to the nearest 50, it says nearest 50. Half of that is 25. So down by 25 is 575. Up by 25 is 625. To the nearest centimetre, if there's no number, it means 1. So half of 1 is 0.5. So down by 0.5 centimetres and up by 0.5 centimetres. 340 to the nearest 5. So half of 5 is 2.5. So down by 2.5 is 337.5. Up by 2.5 is 342.5. Okay, and the trickiest one at the end there, like, to the nearest 0.1, if you chop 0.1 in half, I'll rewrite it like that, that's the same thing, 0.1, half of that would be 0.05, think of chopping 10 pence in half and getting 5 pence, okay, so we're going down by 0.05, which is 23.55, and then up by 0.05, which is 23.65, okay. You're going to get marks in an upper and lower bounds question if you can just do this bit and then no other calculations. So what I would say at the start of an upper and lower bounds question is to write down, for every measurement in the question, write down the upper and lower bounds, get yourself a couple of marks, and then even if you get the next bit wrong, at least you've got a couple. Okay, we'll go straight into some questions. Pause the video to write them down. Okay, so this one's about me and Mrs. Weatherhead. So Mr. Weatherhead wants to lay a path in the garden. Mrs. Weatherhead said the garden is 10 metres long, measured to the nearest metre. Mr. Weatherhead buys 20 paving stones that are 50 centimetres long, each measured to the nearest 5 centimetres. Will the slabs definitely fit perfectly? Unlikely, but let's have a look. Okay, so let's have a look at the garden first. So if you want some easy marks, look at the upper and lower bounds of the garden. So it's 10 metres to the nearest metre. So we're going to go up and down, so add or take away half of a metre. So that gives us a small garden of 9.5 metres or a big garden of 10.5 metres. Okay. Then we go to the paving stones themselves, the slabs. So they're supposed to be 50 centimetres and that's to the nearest 5. So half of 5 is 2.5, so up and down by 2.5. Going down by 2.5 is 47.5 centimetres and going up by 2.5 is 52.5 centimetres. What I would say at this point, because we've got different units for the garden and the stones, is probably a good idea to get a consistent unit. I think probably rather than having horrible decimals here, I think I'd rather just turn these into centimetres. So 9.5 metres is 950 centimetres, remember 100 centimetres to the metre, and this one's 1050 centimetres, because now I've got centimetres for both and I can calculate with those. Okay, you shouldn't really do a calculation with mixed units, that's going to come out all sorts of wrong. Right, will the slabs definitely fit perfectly? So it says in the question I bought 20 of them, so that's not up for argument. There's definitely 20 stones. So let's have a look. If we buy 20 small stones, so 20 times the small ones, that's going to be 20 times 47.5, and 20 times 47.5 is 950 centimetres. Okay, so if the garden is too small and the slabs are too small, that works nicely. Okay, if I buy 20 big paving stones, so 20 times 52.5, that's going to come out as 1050 centimetres. So big slabs in a big garden, that works as well. Okay, but what happens if I try to put big slabs, big paving stones, in a small garden? Well, the other way around would prove this as well. Big paving stones are 1050 centimetres long, look, we just worked that out there, but a small garden is only 950. So now I've got paving stones that are too big and don't fit. Okay, or I can do it the other way around. If I say small paving stones, and 20 of those are 950 centimetres long, in a big garden, now I don't have enough, because a big garden is 1050 centimetres long. So could they fit perfectly? Yes. Will they definitely fit perfectly? The answer to that is going to have to be no. I can't be absolutely sure. I might get lucky. If the garden is too big and the paving stones are also too big, yes. If the garden is smaller than we think and the paving stones are as well, yeah, that works as well. But I can't guarantee it works, because if I mix up big and small, then the paving stones don't fit perfectly. Okay, so that word definitely is really important. It's got to work in all cases for the word definitely to be true. Okay, for the next couple of questions, I've put them in a Word document. So probably the best thing for you to do is to print the document and stick it in your book and work, or work on the sheet itself. Okay, so pause the video, have a go at each of these questions. When you've had a go, press play and I'll show you my answers. Okay, so get your sheet, write the question down or print it out, have a go at it, and then when you're ready, press play. Right, in this question then, so I've started by saying that a big shed is 275 centimetres wide, because it's measured to the nearest 10, so I added on 5. And the wall could be 36.5 or 35.5, because I went up and down by 0.5. Okay. Then I said, well, if the sheds don't fit, what would cause that to happen? It's because the sheds are too big and the wall is too small. So I said, what will happen if I try to put the 275 centimetre sheds against a 35.5 metre wall? Okay, and I've just done this by multiplying, but you can do it by dividing as well. 13 big sheds is 35.75 metres long, and so they wouldn't fit if the wall was only 35.5 metres long. Okay, and that's that question done. As long as you've explained with workings that they will or won't fit, and you've got a sentence at the end with your final answer, that's all you have to do on this question. Okay, if I'd done the opposite way round, I could have proved that if I had 13 small sheds, there would even be some leftover room at the end if the wall was too big. But it didn't ask me that. It said to show it's not possible to fit them in. So I picked the big sheds and the small wall, and then I did some multiplying. Okay, next question. Again, this is on the sheet, so either work on the sheet or write it down and try it. Okay, pause the video, have a go and I'll show you my answer. Okay, in this question then, she needs 825 kilograms. Bags are 36 kilograms to the nearest kilogram. That means for each bag of flour, I can go up or down by 0.5 kilos. Okay. Now it says, is she guaranteed to have enough flour? So what would stop her having enough flour is if the bags of flour were too small this time. So what if they weren't 36 kilograms? What if they were only 35.5? Would 23 bags be enough? 23 lots of 35.5 is only 816. So she's not guaranteed to have enough flour if she buys 23 bags. Okay. If she buys a 24th bag, she'll be fine, because 24 small bags is 852 kilograms. So if she wants to be absolutely certain, she should buy 24 bags, and then even in the worst case scenario, which is something we often talk about in upper and lower bounds, even in a worst case scenario, if she bought 24 bags, she would definitely have more than 825 kilograms of flour, but 23 bags is not enough in this question. Okay, the third one on the sheet, this is a bit tricky because there's a lot of measurements. We've got a rectangular piece of land, I mean think of it like a football pitch or a rugby pitch I suppose, okay, all measured to the nearest metre. So hopefully you started by going up by 0.5 and down by 0.5 for both of those, okay. And then we've got the actual bags of seed. So one bag is supposed to cover 100, but that's the nearest 10. So go up or down by 5 on those. Okay, so let's have a look. So there's all of your measurements with their upper and lower bounds attached. Okay, so the field measurements I went up and down by 0.5, and the bag I went up and down by 5. Then I said if I want to guarantee there's enough seed, I should assume the worst. Okay, which is that the field is bigger than I think it is, and the bags of seed are not as big as I think. Okay, and that's why I'm going to have to buy more bags to guarantee it. Okay, always go for the worst case scenario. So if the field is big and the bags of seed are too small, the numbers I'm going to be using are the biggest length, the biggest width, and the smallest bag of seed. So these are the numbers I'm going to use for the rest of the question. Okay, so using the biggest area values, I found that the biggest possible area of the field is 4,387.25 meters squared. And if one bag of seed is enough to cover 95 meters squared, I divided that and I found that 47 bags would be enough, even if the field is bigger than what I'm expecting it to be, and if the bags of seed are smaller. Now chances are, because I've planned for the worst, I'm going to have leftover seed, but the question did say I had to guarantee I had enough, and that guarantee is why I had to take the biggest field and the smallest seed. Okay, plan for the worst and you'll always be okay. And then the last one on your sheet then, again this is a little bit tricky because there's a lot of numbers and there's mixed units as well. Okay, we've got millimeters and meters mixed up in this question. So the tiles are to the nearest millimetre, but that's in centimetres. The driveway itself is to the nearest metre, and tiles come in boxes of 12 as well, so you have to multiply by 12 at some point. Okay, pause it, have a go. When you're ready, press play and I'll talk you through what I did. Okay, so first of all, I looked at one tile. I converted it to millimetres because it said correct to the nearest millimetre. So instead of 8.5 centimetres, I went for 85 millimetres. And then I went up and down by ½ millimetre. Okay, so I went up and down by 0.5 millimetres. Okay, then I went to the driveway, which is in metres, and I went up and down by ½ metre. Okay, in brackets underneath then is me putting it into a common unit of centimetres, because I didn't want to have a mix of millimetres and metres. I thought the easiest thing to do would be to work everything out in centimetres, so just sort of meet in the middle if you like, for millimetres and metres, that is, isn't it? Okay, You could have done the whole thing in millimeters, you could have done the whole thing in meters. Okay, you should get the same answer, it's just they're not very nice numbers. But what you can't do is leave them mixed up. Right, then I said, well, if there's 12 tiles in a box, I should multiply my 1 tile values by 12. So that's all I did there, is times by 12 to work out what I could cover with 1 box. So the least I can do with 1 box is 101.4 centimeters, and the most I can do with 1 box of tiles is 102.6. And then I said, to guarantee I've got enough, okay, the minimum I should buy is I should assume that the drive is too big, or bigger than I think, and the tiles are too small. When I divided a big drive by a small box of tiles, it came out as 124.75, which means I'm going to have to buy 125 boxes. I'll have a few left over, but nothing I can do about that. Okay, and that guarantees then that I will definitely have enough tiles. I mean, in reality, probably the driveway won't be 126.5 meters long, and the tiles won't be as short as 101.4. But remember, you're planning for the worst case scenario a lot of the time in upper and lower bounds. And the worst case scenario when you're laying tiles is that you've got a lot of distance to lay tiles on, and the tiles are smaller, so you need lots more of them, and that's what I've planned for. Okay, so hopefully going through these questions has helped. I've attached another document with some recent numeracy past paper questions. You've got 2 non-calculated questions and 1 calculated question for you to have a go at. By the time you've worked through this, it's probably taking you most of an hour, so you can have next lesson as well to get those other 3 questions done, and I'll post my solutions later in the week.